Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Awaken the World. It is the seventh day of the fifth month in the year 2021, if you're concerned about such things. 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on the Awaken the World page tonight, The Fine Art of Dying. With, of course, me, myself, and I, and all the rest of the little beings that are wandering around inside of my head. So, as always, and this is something we do inside the group, or something that I do in every video inside the group, so I want to extend that out to every person who would watch this video outside of our group, and that is to express my love for you. No matter what you're going through right now, no matter what position you find yourself in to be, no matter where you are in your head, no matter where you are in your journey, it is absolutely perfect for you right now. Now, that doesn't mean that everything will necessarily appear perfect on the surface. But what it does mean is that we live in an infinitely loving, correcting universe. There is simply nothing that you can do that can harm the journey you're on here. And wherever you are right now is offering you the perfect opportunity to see with new eyes, to hear with new ears, and to be able to raise your own consciousness and choose to perceive from a better place of being for yourself. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Garen Avalokiteshvara, and that's really just a label I carry around. And I've been around this planet for a very long time. If you're looking at me through the screen, I'm sure you can tell. And I have been so very fortunate to have had two near-death experiences in my time on this planet, and one for 8 minutes in corporal time, and the other one for 11 minutes when they found me. I don't really know the full length of time prior to that, so it was a while. Now, those experiences, along with my own experience in awakening, have led me to a place where I am no longer a soldier, and that's what I was. And let me tell you, I used to be a really nasty guy. I would sooner have shot you than to have talked to you. And if you got in my way, well, it wasn't going to go well. And I was a very angry person, a very fearful person because of that. And in my own journey, in my own evolution of consciousness, of spirit, and in my own awakening and in these near-death experiences, it was not a choice. It was literally a switch. I could no longer look upon anyone or anything else in the way that I did prior. And it has been a journey. And there is no end point. So before we get right into these details, I want to make a few things crystal clear, like maybe to set just a little bit of ground rules so we all know we're coming from the same place. So one, I have fake teeth. Okay, I have dentures, and I'm still, believe it or not, kind of adjusting to them. So forgive the little bit of the extras and the occasional lisp. It's a process I'm still getting used to, and I do apologize for it. As I said to Kelly today, though, the one nice thing about having dentures is I will never again face a root canal. And really, I think that's a win-win situation. Really, I'll never need those little needles in my mouth again, or to have or to hear that sound of the drill in your mouth and feel it in your jaw. I just won't have to deal with that anymore. My teeth are like stars; they come out at night. So, back to the ground rules. So one of the ground rules is this is my experience, and it's only my experience. I would only ask of you that you listen with an open heart and an open mind, and then take for yourself what works for you. The other thing that we need to kind of set as a ground rule is the understanding that we can all accept that we are all perceiving our existence. We all have a point of view. And the interesting thing of a point of view, if you were to look at a point of view on a page, a point of view is really, really tiny. And I guess what I'm saying by that is that let's allow for this evening us to all accept each other's points of view. And I'm going to hopefully entertain you a little bit and hopefully raise your being a little bit tonight and bring you to a new place in consciousness and understanding that death is not only a misnomer, but the very best experience you're ever going to have while alive or dead. Now I'm confused. So let's begin from there. So when we talk about death, and right now during COVID-19, of course, worldwide, we're talking about millions of deaths. And this has perhaps been brought home during this pandemic in a way that the modern world does not like to face. And you can always tell a society's issues with death and how severe they are when you look at the struggle to accumulate. And that's part of an egoic concept that the more things you have, the more safe you are. Because, of course, you've invested part of yourself in each of those things. So you, believe it or not, this is very true, subconsciously you perceive yourself as the sum total of all of those things, plus your sense of self on top of that. So obviously in our world, in the first world, death is not a subject. And, this is changing, and it's fantastic that it is. But death is sort of a taboo subject. And, Kelly and a lot of other people were quite incensed initially by me because, when someone says that somebody dies, that puts a smile on my face. And the reason is this. What we would call death is actually a graduation. And it is a planned graduation, just like you plan to graduate at the end of grade 12. Now, that's going to seem really confusing at first. I mean, if you've listened to me before, you've heard me talk about free will and the fact that we indeed have freedom of choice, but free will is a determination of a lot of other factors involved, our level of consciousness and awakening and our perceptions, because, of course, we're only operating within the choices that we can perceive. And to that extent, that's the limit of our free will. But we do have freedom of choice. If you can grasp this for a minute, and the reason I'm struggling with words is it's trying to put in something that you actually have to experience, which I have experienced in my near-death experiences. That's a lot of experience. There is but no time and yet time. So here we're experiencing the corporal relative aspect of time, but of course in that land of no time, if you will, for lack of a better term right now, there is no time. So your entire journey here on this planet is both known and unknown to you, yet known. And certainly known to that creative consciousness in its entirety. The past, present, and future are all one and occurring simultaneously. It is our limited perception and the concept of spaces between things and are the limitations of what we would call the speed of light that give us our concept of time. But time is a construct, and that's all it is. So when you came here, when you chose to come to Earth and participate in this human experience, you had a certain checklist with you. And really the best way to liken this, because it's closest to the truth that you can get, is you're going to an amusement park and you've watched the advertisements and you've seen that there's a whole bunch of rides. So you've got a checklist. You know, the night before you showed up, before you were conceived in your mother's womb, you sat there in that spiritual realm and you had a checklist and you were going through your checklist excitedly about all the rides that you were going to get on when you visited Earth, this amusement park that is our physical realm. And you decided, in order to make the experience the best it could possibly be, that you were going to not only consciously forget about your list, but you were also going to forget that you planned it all out. And you were going to believe wholeheartedly that you were a singular human being. Why? Because that was going to give you the most realistic experience. You were going to feel every aspect of being here. And your journey here is only a journey of reminding yourself of who and what you truly are. But the point is this, that journey was set out. You had your list. And when someone dies, they've completed their list. They're done. They've been on every ride they wanted to be on. They've made every connection. Made the difference in every life that they were supposed to. You see, there are no wrong deaths. And the reason this tears me up is whenever I talk about this, it brings an intense longing for that place that is so much more our home. Now, that doesn't mean that our experience here isn't valuable. It truly is a valuable experience. And without getting into too much detail, this is not the only place that you can come to have that experience. I know human beings would like to think that we're the only thing in the universe and the be-all, end-all, and all of creation and God and all of that is just for us. But there's other places to go to. The point is this, when that person in your life dies, when it's your turn to leave, you've completed your journey here. It is a cause for joyful celebration. And in truth, I can tell you right now, and we're going to talk about my near-death experiences, okay, but in truth, on what we would term the other side, for lack of a better term to use, or across the veil, if you will, whatever you want to call it, there is absolutely no concern that there is anything going wrong within this physical realm, because there isn't. The view from the other side is everything is exactly as it needs to be. There's a lot of compassion and a whole lot of love and a whole lot of understanding that we don't lend ourselves. And it's so important for me to make it clear to you right now that nobody dies at the wrong time. It's quite impossible. And that was also part of my near-death experiences. So I just want to clarify, the things that I'm talking about right now are amongst the vast treasure trove of information that I received during both of my near-death experiences. And when I had my first near-death experience, I was still an ignorant, angry, happy to kill you sniper. And when I died the first time, I was gunning for God. I fully expected to get there, and I was going to rain hellfire down upon God in my anger for my life and what I perceived that God had done to my life, and all the other things, and of course that evaporated in a heartbeat. So I guess maybe, and I know I'm feeling like I'm jumping around a little bit. There's so much I want to get out in this, but the main focus right now is that there are no wrongful deaths. There are no exit points that aren't perfectly planned. And it doesn't matter whether that's somebody dying by someone else's hand, or dying in a car crash, or dying by COVID. It is perfect. They finished and chose this time to exit. And we get caught up in the idea because the tiniest part of their form, the tiniest aspect of who they are, is no longer visible to us. The body's gone. We perceive a separation that doesn't exist. Just like when you, and forgive the water, as I said, I actually have dentures, and I don't mind that because I'm not going to get any more root canals ever. But I do get a little bit of a dry mouth. So when we're willing to understand that no one leaves this planet at the wrong time, that there are no wrongful deaths, there are no deaths that aren't supposed to happen, we can come to a sense of peace. And the next step is to understand that there is no separation. So when we were young, we were taught, you remember probably in school, they had the picture on the wall of the atom. And the atom was a globe, and in the early days they didn't. Now I'm really dating myself, but let's just get a little more modern. In the more modern early days, they had the globe with three other circles inside of it, and there was a ring, like the ring of Saturn, around that, except there were like three of them or four of them, and on those rings were other smaller globes, and that was an atom. Well, we got the idea in our heads that we were thinking about something solid, that an atom was actually a solid product. It was just too tiny to be seen by the human eye, but if you had the right microscope, like an atomic microscope or an electron microscope, you'd be able to see the atom. But the atom is energy. It has no exact place we can pin it down. The same can be said about that spiritual realm. We always think of heaven, if we have to give it that label, as a place that we go to, that there's some sort of travel involved. Like the minute we die, there's a guy there with a train ticket, and you get on a train. And I mean, I don't know, depending on how train, it could be a long trip. But see, that's not actually the case. So the first time I died, and here is the beauty of this that I want to pass on to all of you. Even if it appears that the egoic consciousness is dying poorly, dying in fear, in that last heartbeat of a moment, there is a state of calm that pervades that egoic consciousness. And they pass peacefully. This is actually part of nature. There's a moment where the egoic self gives up the fight. And in that moment, the moment of no more resistance to what is right now, that peace takes over. When you die, in my case, in my near-death experience, I experienced myself above my body, and I did not recognize at first the appearance of what was there. And it's important to understand that what you truly are does not live inside your body, locked in this. It is much larger, much grander than that. It is actually manifesting your body. What you truly are lowers part of its vibrational frequency right down to the point where physical manifestation occurs, and that's you. That's what you think you are. And indeed, it is part of you. It is the filter through which you're going to experience this earthly amusement park. And before anyone gets upset, a lot of times the amusement park involves a lot of pain and suffering. And believe me, I've been through it. I wouldn't change a thing, knowing what I know now. I wouldn't change one bit of it. I would still take all the pain. I would still take all the suffering, perceived or otherwise. So in that experience of dying, you are offered, it's really eventually not a choice because there's really nowhere else to go, what can only be described as a vortex or an Einstein-Rosengate bridge or a dimensional tunnel. And you really don't leave the physical world. What happens is the focus changes. So no longer being focused on the physical aspect and being focused instead on the much more higher vibrational spiritual aspect, you finally understand that the spiritual realm is right here. It's not some other place. It's right here. The people who you perceive because you cannot see them anymore are right here. And they are available to you. That they are able to be communicated with. They haven't left. They have simply evolved in their experience. And whether you believe in this or not, I can tell you from my near-death experience, you are going to come back here, and you've been here before, and you've taken on many different appearances. You don't need to cry or worry or be upset, but you're totally entitled to. But don't do so because you think that person is gone. There is nothing that is ever lost in this creation. When you die, you will meet yourself, and yourself will manifest itself as yourself. Don't get confused. In whatever form is going to best suit the point of view of that egoic memory drive, that hard drive, the personality of your experience that's been recording every minute of it. It is going to manifest, and this is you, will manifest. So when you die, you may be met by Christ, if that's who you, in your deepest of hearts, would want to meet and feel most safe with and most secure with. If you wanted it to be your grandmother, it would be your grandmother. That's why all near-death experiences report variations in the experience. It's because it has to be understandable through the egoic form. especially when that near-death experience is only a near-death experience and not a death experience, when that egoic form will not be returning. But the point is that there is nothing lost. That which you are is part of creation, part of God's own experience of it experiencing itself in mirrored form. That's what it truly means, that we are all children of God, all children of creation. We are all an aspect of that same Creator. There is nothing ever lost, and certainly nothing to ever have to worry about or fret about. Now, when it comes to the fear of death, of course, we don't like to talk about death, but in reality, life is trying to prepare us for death all the time. And really, the only thing that death is the point where the ego can see nothing else of itself. It's like this physical universe. You know, one of the interesting characteristics about our physical universe is that no matter where you are the center of creation. Now, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. We're waiting for a phone call. Kelly will get that and take it away. So that's the interesting thing about our universe, is that no matter where you are the center of the universe. And when we point a telescope into space in any direction, we can only look so far. We reach sort of a boundary line, and that boundary line is the point where the movement away from us is so fast that we can no longer see it. The light will never reach us because the space is widening faster than the light can travel. So we appear we're in a bubble. This is the same when it comes to our concept of death. You know, we get this idea because there's a wall there that we would call death, and that we perceive that the body is gone. But I can tell you this, and I'm sorry to interrupt for 1 second. So do you have to run? No? Okay. And this wall is the wall of the egoic sense of self that sees nothing more for itself. That wall is an illusion, but life is still preparing us for this. Now, at every moment through our lives, we experience a lot of little deaths. And these deaths should be thought of in the same way. We once believed in Santa Claus, and to be honest, I still believe in the spirit of Santa Claus. But, you know, at one time, I honestly believed there was going to be a little red dude with a big round belly and a little reindeer group and a sled. I really believed that, and he was going to come and give me Christmas presents. Now, my point of view changed at some point. I experienced the death of that point of view, and my point of view evolved. And this occurs to us over and over and over again. And all these little deaths, the death of one moment to the next, the death of relationships, the death of jobs we have, the death of situations, experiences, the death of our health, the death of our anything. These are all offering us the opportunity, offering us preparation for that moment when we are truly done our journey here. Now, the one thing I've heard asked of me many times is, you know, like, why is it that some people seem to go really suddenly and others tend to linger? And there's only one reason that people tend to linger, and the lingering was already pre-planned too. And that is there are lessons and teaching being offered right to the last moment, right to the last breath, literally, of that person. And in their death, there is also opportunity for growth. We are all one interconnected family. When someone dies within the circle of people you know, it is worthwhile to look closely and to examine what lessons can be taken from their experience. That is one of the best ways to help keep the person solidified in our mind, if that is necessary for you, is to look at their existence and see what their existence was speaking to. See the love that led them right up to the point that they passed away. And know that there is no passing away. So in my near-death experience, when you first arrive, if that's the term we need to use, and again, we're just speaking with some sort of convention because you're not really going anywhere, you enter in what I'm going to loosely call a hallway, a space where the entirety of your life, every single interaction, every single experience, every single thought, every single feeling you had based on your thoughts and your emotional states, as well as those of all the people who were involved with you, you will experience all of it. You will, and you've heard the term, my life flashed before my eyes. Well, imagine the same process, except on a level so deep that you actually become aware of everyone else who was involved as well as you. So you have that overview of all those mixed experiences between yourself and other people. You see and feel both sides of the experience. And in that, all the angst, all the idea that anything that ever happened was actually negative falls away. At the same time that you feel deeply sorrowful for the moments where you caused harm to another. But you will not find judgment waiting for you when you die. I know. When I died the first time, I had already been responsible for killing over 40 different individuals in theaters of war. I was a nasty person. I hated God. And if there was someone who would have been doomed to some sort of judgment, it would have been me. I liked my job, which was killing people. There is no judgment waiting for you. And if anyone's died in your life and you have any concern at all that there's some aspect of them that God may reject in some way, that is quite impossible. Not only was I shown, not only was I told directly, but I experienced. And it's hard because, boy, even just to think of that feeling. And the deal is it's the same love that we're all swimming in every minute of every day. Except without yourself in the way with a small s, without that ego cloak, which blocks so much of that love. Free of that cloak in that moment of death, you are wrapped in love that there's nothing. There's nothing I can say. And that love that you're experiencing right now, and you will experience in your fullest realization of its fullest form, in that love, you will understand that you are that love. That indeed there is only one consciousness, and that is the consciousness of God, the Creator. Everything, all of us, every plant, every tree, every planet, every galaxy, every star, every mote of dust, every speck of sunlight, every photon, every atom, every molecule, all exists within the mind of God, within the consciousness of creation with a capital C. You are a miniaturized holographic representation of that whole of creation. You are a child of that divine creator. And when I say child, not an offspring, but a literal clone, like a mini-me of the divine. And through each of us, a one-of-a-kind, unique, individuated appearance of apparent individuation, of apparent separateness, offers that divine consciousness a look back upon itself, an evolving point of view. There is nothing lost in our experiences here. There is no egoic personality, no grandmother, no Garen, no Kelly, no George, no Frank, that ever appears to leave this earth that is not preserved and available in every way. We are all so much larger than we give ourselves credit for. And having that experience of reviewing your life frees the last of the little self. So from that experience, I moved into what I can only describe would be a magnificent chamber where there was nothing solid, and yet there was solidity. And the colors, are more akin to what we can honestly see if we had eyes that saw more than 2% of the light spectrum. And it was there that I received the first load of information. And that information was telegraphed to me without the need for communication, and yet there was definitely a communication happening. And in that communication, a couple of points came up that are really important to drive home for people who are afraid of death and have questions about their journey here. Just as you picked the path and the general high points, just as you made the list of all the rides you wanted to attend, when you go to an amusement park, you're not only going to attend all those rides, those are sort of like all the must-dos. And then there's going to be a whole bunch of other stuff that's going to be kind of like optional. And when I talk about free will, the first question people say is, well, wait a minute, if it's already all known, in other words, if I've already done it all, how is it that my will was free? And the answer is, as I've said, is that, well, it's not really your will that's free, because will is limited by mind, and will is also limited by the concept of what it has to do in the physical realm. What you do have is freedom of choice. And we choose arteries to head down on our pathway, on our journey here. And a lot of times we look at that journey and we see someone who is an alcoholic, or we see someone who is addicted to drugs, or we see someone who is doing themselves harm, and we ask ourselves, how could we live in a world where someone would choose to come here and experience life in this way? What I was given was the clear understanding that each and every one of us, in one life or another, will experience each and every aspect of what it means to be human. That's how we grow and evolve. I have been many different incarnations, and yet none of those were the I that speaks to you right now. There is nothing lost in the memory bank of what we would call a person. And you are the sum total, if you will, of everything that's come before. Each and every one of us. In 13.7 billion years of creation, if you happen to believe the Big Bang Theory, there will only ever be one of you. There will only ever be one of each of us. And each of us has a unique gift to offer the world, and that gift cannot be lost. You know, we get confused with the idea that there's something huge and grand we have to do, and that's the gift. Like, it's got to be a big glowing green singing strange ball of energy or something like that. And that's not the gift. The gift is you. The gift is your point of view. The gift is who you choose to be. And when we lose people in our lives, we're being offered the opportunity to see the sacredness of the journey here. And it is a momentary journey. You are eternal, as is the person that you perceive has died. There is nothing lost. And when you're willing to sit in silence and form a picture of them within your mind and ask them any question you wish, they will clearly communicate with you. The only thing that will interfere with that is your unwillingness to accept that. And if it doesn't work at first, it's okay. Open yourself more and more. Look for the signs. You will see the other person around you. We keep forgetting that verbal communication is but the tiniest aspect. Only around 20% of the full communication. There's an 80% of communication that is available for you to experience before you even reestablish that verbal connection. And they will speak to you in your mind, and they will speak to you clearly. And you will be able to go to them for guidance. And any perceived issues that you perceive that they had while they were here, you need to know that those issues are resolved in the moment you pass through that tunnel. There is no imperfect journey. There is no wasted life. There is no life that should have lasted one iota longer than it did. And when people hang around, it's just because they're hoping that someone nearby them will get a final lesson from them that they're trying to deliver. So how do we actually deal with our own death? Well, I would invite you to take time to contemplate it, to sit down and decide for yourself what you really, really think is going to happen. And to ask yourself whether you're ready for it. And if not, begin to look at your existence and see how you've already died many times. The young boy who believed in Santa Claus is no more, although every aspect of that young boy continues on. The soldier who would have rather killed someone than communicated otherwise with them is also no more. And yet, that which he was also lives on. Ultimately, when we look beyond this physical form, when we delve down deep into the structure of what we are, we find particles of light flickering in and out of existence, fields of energy that overlap with no apparent beginning and no apparent end. We are all part of that divine consciousness. No one is ever lost, and there is nothing to be afraid of and nothing to worry about, ever. The last little message I want to deliver from my own near-death experience is this. You are never not in the right state of mind. Now, this can seem to fly in the face of a lot of things that people talk about and a lot of things that I've talked about how your perceptions are everything. If you find your perceptions are not making you feel very good right now, there's a perfection in that. There's a lesson there waiting for you, an opportunity to examine your perceptions, to examine how it is you view your world, and to understand that it never was set in stone, and that there is no objective reality which human beings experience. All experiences are subjective. All experiences are processed through this one-of-a-kind filter that each of us are, offering that creative essence, God, the opportunity to view itself in mirrored form. You are a success from the minute you arrived here. There is nothing that you need to accomplish beyond what you're already in the act of accomplishing. All of creation smiles down upon you and only wishes to see what it is that you will choose to do next. We have an amazing power, and we are exercising that power in every minute, whether we're doing so consciously or subconsciously. And that is the power of creation. And what creates is our point of view. So the next time that you perceive that somebody is dying, allow your point of view to expand. Realize that in the moment of their death, they stand there still. And that they have gone, as a matter of fact, they are closer to you than they could ever be in the physical realm. That's it. That's all. I'm gonna shut it down there. I could keep talking about all the different things that I received in this experience, but tonight this is really about helping people let go of the idea that there's a bad time to die or a wrong time to die, or that any death is not meaningful, or that there's any loss at all, because there's really not. So much so that after my experiences, I now honestly, I'm joyously happy to be alive, but at the same time, I'm looking forward to the day when I'm not. Because I already know I still will be alive. And it'll be a whole new adventure, a whole new experience. Much love, namaste. We hold you all in our hearts. You are all deeply loved and cared for. Held in the arms of creation, love itself, the wave on the ocean of love, is the ocean and the love. Namaste and good night.